Hello again, everybody. I have returned to the series of Undeserved Downfall. It has been a while, but I wanted to take a little break from the series so I don't get burnt out from it too much or too quickly. But now I have returned, and for this specific video of the series, I will be ending off my segment of movies. And then I will be moving on to more niche kind of mixture of different pieces of media that I feel like talking about. It's going to be more experimental than it has been for the past 6 videos. So, yeah. For this one, I was in a bit of a dilemma, because there are 2 specific movies that I wanted to talk about in this video to end it off. It was either gonna be about Treasure Planet or Rise of the Guardians. Both movies, they're considered cult classics. They have a small following that to this day they think they are a masterpiece of films. And both movies were also financial failures, and they didn't really take off as much as other well-known movies from Disney and Dreamworks did. So yeah, they seem like the perfect candidate to this, but I needed to choose one to end off this section, and then later down in the future I will talk about the other movie. So for quite a while, actually, I didn't really know how or which movie to pick until I was doing research on both movies. And one movie in particular stuck out to me that not only did it fail so bad that it didn't even get a sequel, and it's not even really mentioned anymore by the company, it legitimately hurt Dreamworks financially to the point where they had to lay off a bunch of people. And because of that reason and that reason alone, I decided to pick Rise of the Guardians for this video. So today we will be talking about that movie. Treasure Planet will be talked about in a future video somewhere down the line. I don't know when, but it'll be down in the future, along with other games that I missed. So trust me, there's a lot more content for this series. I'm not running out of it anytime soon, trust me. So, why don't we start to talk about the undeserved downfall of Rise of the Guardians. Rise of the Guardians was a 2012 movie made by Dreamworks Animation, and it told the tale of many folklore characters like Jack Frost, Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, Sandman, and the Tooth Fairy, and put them together as a sort of Avenger-esque type of movie. They were basically tales that kids would believe in, but they would also fight fear and the darkness in children's hearts. So that was definitely a different take for all these characters who people have seen in many pieces of media telling their classic stories, like how Santa Claus goes around every night, Christmas night, to deliver presents to children, or how on Easter, the Easter Bunny would go around and hide Easter eggs for people to find in an Easter egg hunt, and so on and so forth. They took that and decided, you know what, let's make them into Avengers. Which is kind of funny considering that this was the same year the first Avengers movie came out, but I digress. We keep going. The film centers around Jack Frost and his struggle for being seen by children. He is a folklore tale depicting freezing winters, harsh winters, and snowy weather in general. That's who he is. But children do not believe him, so they can't see him or hear him at all. So whenever he does do something with the children, and that is, maybe giving them a sled ride, they do not really believe that it was him. Rather, it was just the weather itself causing all of this. So Jack is just kind of feeling lonely and isolated. And that is basically the main driving force of this movie. Jack's identity crisis. Since the very beginning of the movie, you see him just kind of messing around with children and stuff just because he feels like it. He feels like a sort of prankster. He likes to play pranks just to have fun. But as you see the film, his so-called pranks and, messing around takes a deeper tone when you see that he just wants to be seen. Every time he messes with a child, or he gives them a snowball to the back of the head, he hopes that they would just see him, so he sort of lashes out as the embodiment of winter, to just so they can anybody could see him and believe in him. But they don't. Instead, they focus all their beliefs in the other characters like Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy, and that legitimately saddens him. He doesn't like being isolated. He hates being alone, and he starts seeing his powers and his just himself as a nobody. It is later explained in the movie that the moon itself is what chooses these people and gives them their gifts, their powers, and turns them into what they are according to the folklore. And so Jack can really understand why the moon chose him to become Jack Frost. He doesn't see a real purpose because, once again, he can't be seen. And then the call of action happens when the boogeyman itself threatens the beliefs of the children, calling the guardians themselves to go to action and take him out. But before they do that, the moon gives them a message saying that a new guardian is being picked. And coincidentally, or not really coincidentally, Jack Frost is the one that is chosen. So now Jack embarks on this adventure with the Guardians to not only stop the boogeyman, but also to find himself. Now, the characters themselves are pretty stereotypical. Santa Claus is your big, strong Russian man with that thick Russian accent. The Easter Bunny is basically just an Australian, and that's his entire personality. The Tooth Fairy is the caring sort of kind of mother of the group, and Jack Frost is the little prankster stinker that also has no idea what to do. While the villain itself, he's a very compelling villain. I do like him, and I feel like he can go into Dreamworks Hall of Fame of memorable villains. The Boogeyman, or Pitch, as they call him, he is evil because, the folklore. He creates nightmares for people and stuff like that. But he's also has a backstory to himself. He was also chosen by the moon itself to become the boogeyman. And can I just say, the moon literally screwed over Pitch by creating him into the boogeyman. Like, the sole purpose is to become the villain, and that's what the moon gave him. Like, the real villain is the moon for screwing over someone like that. But yeah, he hates what he is. he doesn't like being alone all the time, feeling isolated, and basically forgotten because as time goes on, people just pretty much stop believing in the boogeyman and how that's just a bunch of folklore nonsense that parents tell their kids so they can behave. So, yeah, he hates the fact that he is not recognized. He wants respect, he wants recognition, and he stops at literally nothing to get it. He manipulates people, he strings them along into where he can do his own bidding while others are distracted. For example, tricking Jack Frost to go into his lair while he destroys all the Easter eggs for Easter, causing the Easter Bunny to not be believed in anymore. So yeah, he's a very good villain. I do like the boogeyman in this movie. Also, a quick tangent over here. I forgot to mention Sandman. Sandman is basically a mute, and he's also the most powerful guardian there. But he does a bunch of body language humor, and that's his whole shtick. And it actually works out well for him because the stuff that they do with him is creative and also pretty entertaining. The theme of this movie is very much about finding who you are, what you can do for others, and what your calling can be. For example, with Santa Claus, he sees the wonder in everything, so he uses that wonder into creating his toys for the children in Christmas. Jack's calling is to make light of everything, no matter how dire things can get, bringing a smile to people, making them happy, no matter what their situation is. And that's honestly a really good message where it tells young people and adults that you can find your calling, and not only can it fulfill you, it can also make others feel better, help other people. And that's honestly a really strong message, and I feel like the story plays that up very well. Despite the characters being stereotypical, they lean into that. They don't try to make it all deep and stuff. They lean into the stereotypes and just have fun with it. And I like that. The animation is also very good, very fluid, very imaginative, and it has its own kind of style that to this day I feel like it still holds up. Very, very cool animation. So the animation's great. The characters, while stereotypical, are fun to watch. The story is very entertaining with a really good message for everybody to get. And the villain is very compelling. It has all the elements for it to be a Dreamworks classic. And yet, it has been forgotten in time that even here in 2025, it is rarely mentioned. So, what happened? What made it fall? Well, according to this article, it was because of marketing and distribution costs. Now, I will add my own takes into this, but let's go over what this website is talking about. Basically, you can't really see marketing in the budget. It's usually never really there. So whenever you see the budget of a movie, you usually add a lot more of that budget into a guesstimation about the marketing. So let's take a look at it. Rise of the Guardians had a budget of $145 million. Let's add about 50 to 60 million for marketing. And now let's add a lot more with distribution costs. Now, back in 2012, Dreamworks was still a very independent company. It did not have any partner companies or parent companies. It was just its own entity. So because of that, the production and distribution costs of the movie itself, like let's say in theaters or in DVDs, will fall into their hands. With that being said, that would make it cost a lot more. Because with distribution costs, it can get extremely expensive. Especially once you get to the DVD and Blu-ray stuff, because you're gonna add a lot more stuff into that DVD for like bonus and other features, so the cost is gonna go up even more. So because of that, DreamWorks had a lot in their plate. It's not like Pixar, where they have a parent company like Disney that is like multi whatever billion dollar company. They can handle the distribution costs no problem. Now, DreamWorks were basically on their own, using every single cost for this movie. And with a budget of 145 million, it can skyrocket to even more than 300 million. So, Rise of the Guardians made a total of 300 million worldwide. Now, in order for a movie to be successful, it has to make double of their budget, which includes distribution costs and marketing. Now, with DreamWorks saying that those costs are the reason why Rise of the Guardians failed, it is safe to say that 307 million worldwide was not enough to break even for DreamWorks, and it showed. The staggering losses were amounted to $87 million, and it costed DreamWorks so much that they had to lay off over 350 employees. That is crazy to think. This movie made over 300 million with a 145 million budget, and it still came out with an $87 million loss. It makes you really wonder how expensive those distribution costs were and how much money they spent on that marketing. Now here's where I'm going to put my 2 cents into it. DreamWorks usually has this thing, kind of like Illumination, where they would hire a bunch of A-list actors. And this movie is packed with them, including Hugh Jackman as the Easter Bunny. And, you know, these actors are well known, and yes, they bring in a lot of seats into the cinema because of their name alone. But let's be real, they are expensive to hire. So it wouldn't surprise me if a large portion of the budget went into hiring these actors and paying them for their voiceovers and all that stuff. It wouldn't surprise me at all how that could be a big factor of their budget being inflated. And yes, this is a 50-50 with this strategy in making an A-list actor cast, where if it works, it can give you a lot of money. But if it fails, it can cost you a lot. And for DreamWorks, on this movie in particular, I feel like, yeah, it did cost them a lot. Now, that is a small reason that I want to add in, but the even bigger reason that I want to add is its competition. It came around November of 2012, right? What other big animated movie came out in early November back in 2012? I'll give you guys 5 seconds to guess. I'm gonna wreck it! None other than the smash hit Wreck-It Ralph, which became an instant classic when it came out and a huge financial win for Disney. It took over all the cinemas. It became pretty much the biggest animated movie of 2012 and is something that people talk about to this day. Rise of the Guardians came out just barely 2 weeks after Wreck-It Ralph came out. So you can imagine that Wreck-It Ralph took a lot of their competition's audience and a lot of their money as a result. And that is why it's a really, really, really bad strategy to put your new and unique animated movie that nobody really knows what's about to begin with a titan giant in the industry like Disney that back then would create classic after classic after classic. Dreamworks, I don't know why they decided to do that, but I feel like putting it just weeks after the release of Wreck-It Ralph costed them a lot more, which is money that they could have saved if they put this movie as maybe a Christmas special that would release in Christmas and people will go out to watch it on Christmas, where people are out and about the most. I feel like that could have helped them a little bit more, but instead they decided to put it against one of the all-time classics that is Wreck-It Ralph. So yeah, Rise of the Guardians had all the elements for it to be a instant classic for DreamWorks, but due to the many costs from distribution and marketing, and pretty much putting it up against Wreck-It Ralph just weeks after it released, costed this movie to become a failure in DreamWorks' eyes, to the point where they laid off hundreds of employees and they don't mention this movie at all. I have not seen any mention of a sequel or anything new from this what was back then an up and coming franchise that I know for sure that if it did succeed, DreamWorks would milk with so many sequels. But unfortunately, all we got is this one movie, which is a good movie, mind you, but it could have been more were if it did succeed. And unfortunately, it did not. So, surprisingly enough, this movie to this day still has a small cult following that says that this movie is a DreamWorks classic and it was just an unfortunate failure that should not have been. To the point where people are very fanatics of Jack Frost and also making Jack Frost and Elsa shipping romance stories, fan fictions. Back when Frozen came out, they were like, oh, Elsa's just like Jack Frost. Let's put them together. And yeah, that was a weird time back then, seeing Jack Frost being shipped with all these Disney princesses. It was a weird time. It was all in Tumblr. But yeah, there was a lot of fan fictions back then. To this day, yeah, the movie still has a small following, but it doesn't really get mentioned as much by that following anymore, which is sad to see, because this movie could have jump-started a classic franchise for DreamWorks. It really could have. But DreamWorks seems to be doing fine now, especially after they got bought off by a parent company of Illumination, and they seem to be doing well in the movie industry with movies like Puss in Boots 2, A Dying Wish, and Trolls 3, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So, yeah, it seems like they're still in experimenting and trying out new things. So, I'm glad that this movie's failure did not deter them to, expand on a couple things and experiment more, because with experimentation you can get a lot of good stuff that we got back in the 2000s and the early 2010s. And that is it. This concludes the undeserved downfall of the Rise of the Guardians. I hope you guys enjoyed very much. I know I'm not really using any sort of trailer footage, because like I said, with my Transformers 1 video, it got copyrighted because all I did was use trailer footage for that video. So it got copyrighted. And with Teen Titans, I used Flash games, which kind of worked, but the perspective was not the best. And Rise of the Guardian did have Flash games back then, but I would say games as a very loose term. So I decided to just get footage from a random game that kind of can fit the aesthetic of Rise of the Guardians, kind of maybe. And I hope this is good for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, let me know down in the comments what I can improve upon with this series and what I can sustain for this series. Make sure to like and subscribe, because gotta get that algorithm to finally recognize me. But yeah, I really enjoy making this show, and there's gonna be a lot more videos for this show in the future, along with montages and music videos. And then around December, I will have a big update that I will brief you guys about once late December comes around. So once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later. Goodbye.